I want to talk about the trees in Yosemite National Park. I think this is one of the most beautiful parks in the entire world. And I took a few days and went up there. And I saw a lot of really interesting situations. And here's one in particular that I want to talk about. This enormous black oak, Quercus kelloggi, is one of the native trees in Yosemite Valley. And this particular tree is ancient. This tree predates all white men coming into Yosemite Valley, and it's up on the parking area on the way up to Bridal Veil Falls. And I was kind of saddened when I looked at it, and it made me stop and think about the negligence of the National Park Service in terms of recognizing and understanding what trees need to survive. I mean, the trees are such an important part of this park. This tree was magnificent, but now it is dead, and it has recently died. And the reason that it has died is human interaction. The construction around this tree has slowly taken away its root system. And this new bathroom, this is fairly new, that was put in was the nail in the coffin for this tree. And you know, I think that the Park Service needs to have an arborist on staff that gets involved in every construction project. They need to look at the really old trees and recognize the impact and do what they can. You see the cracks around the base of the tree, it is drying out quickly. And I'm sure this tree will be removed in the next year or so because it's such a prominent area that is being utilized by so many people. But it shouldn't have happened. Had they mulched around the tree, had they picked a spot a little bit further away from this tree, or made the environment more conducive to long-term root development and prolonged root development rather than the concrete and the excavation. And they got in there with heavy equipment. And I think it's kind of a disgrace. And I said before that this was the parking lot area on the hike up to Bridal Veil Falls. So this video is about trees, but I will interject a few bits about Yosemite. It's called the Leaning Tower. And if you know anything about me, I was a really avid rock climber when I lived up in Yosemite for a year in 1972. I did climb the face of the Leaning Tower, which is a overhanging climb. It was a 2-day climb for me. I spent the night on that face up there. There's a little edge about halfway up. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It's an amazing climb. I'm going to talk a little bit about rock climbing because that is what got me into tree work. There's the falls again. It's quite sparse. There's not a lot of water in it. Afterwards, we went down to the Merced River, which is moving quite slowly. Usually there's a current through here and it's rushing down, so it actually felt like it was almost stagnant. It was moving slow. And off in the distance there's El Capitan. I also climbed the face of El Capitan in 1972 when I was only 18 years old. I made 4 attempts on El Capitan, only completed it all the way once. I'll tell you more about that some other time, but there's Half Dome in the background, the Washington Column, the Royal Arches. Like I said, it's just an incredible place. Further on in the video, I'm going to take you out to the Mariposa Grove, which is a very important topic. If you've been following my channel, you know that I recently spoke about the fires in the large redwood groves in Big Basin. Oh, look at this. This blew my mind. This tree is magnificent. I hope some of you can guess it before I tell you what it is. It's got seeds on it right now. It ends up with beautiful white flowers. It's a native to this area. It's the Pacific dogwood. Oh, and this is a huge example. They don't get that big, but what a magnificent tree. I'm in awe of this tree. I love this tree every bit as much as I love the giant trees around. It's not all about size, but here's another tree. This is a yellow pine, and this is right near the entrance to the lodge. And when I lived here in 1972, I remember this tree and the one adjacent to it. and they were almost the same size. If you've been to Yosemite, you've probably witnessed the Yosemite Falls, and you can see there that it is absolutely dry. So the date is October 10th, and it's not the best time of the year to see it. This is an interesting story. That's called Boot Flake. This is from a photograph, and you see the climber up there. There he is. I want you to pay attention to this. This is Boot Flake. I did this climb that went through it. I actually climbed the Boot Flake part myself. This is on El Capitan. That thing is about 60 feet tall. So we're off to the redwoods, the Mariposa Grove, which is one of the principal parts of this video. And what I want to talk about is the fact that there was a big fire that went through the Mariposa Grove. A big part of it was protected. And as you see, these trees do not show any signs of burnt bark. There isn't any burn damage on some of these trees, but not all of them. As we get further up, I'm going to show you some of the burn scar area. Isn't that beautiful? There isn't any black to speak of. Maybe a long, long time ago there may have been a fire, but all evidence of the blackening on the trunk is pretty much gone. They've done a great job of putting in pathways and protecting the space around a lot of these trees, but not completely. This is interesting. This is an old tree that fell down, and I'm showing you this for the size of this. This is a tree that fell down recently, and you can see the difference between the old exposed roots and the roots that still have dirt in them. And the reason for showing this is the root zone is not as big as a lot of people think. However, beyond what you see here are all the tiny absorbing roots. And once a root system falls down, the small, insignificant size roots, which are so important to maintain the absorption of water and nutrients for the tree, they all break off. So people look at the size of the root system that they can see, and that's what they think the tree's root system is all about. There's that one that fell down a long time ago and it washed out. So let's get into the burn area, and you can see there's a bit of burn scar on this old beautiful tree. Some of the blacking, that was quite a while ago, and here's from the recent fire. Some of the giant redwoods are burned pretty bad. Most of the adjacent trees, especially the pines and some of the other species, did not survive. But the redwoods, they try to survive. They really do. They have a thick bark, but not all of them survived. Quite a few of them have died, and quite a few of them have serious damage on the bark. So what I'm doing is I'm hiking up further along, and I was so happy to see a lot of young trees coming in. You can stop anywhere you want to in this video and read these signs, and it'll tell you more about it. There's an ugly shot of the fire zone that went through. Fortunately, there weren't any huge redwoods in this area, but a lot of the trees are showing evidence of past fires. This is kind of pretty. They've actually named this grouping of trees here. And there's a trail that goes on to the tree that I was going to see. This is called the Grizzly Giant, and this is a magnificent tree. This is the biggest redwood in Yosemite, and it is just incredible. And there's a bit of history around it, but what I found interesting is they have a walking area around the base of the tree. And the support roots are protected, but the absorbing roots that take care of the tree are being compacted by so much pedestrian traffic. You know, it goes all the way around the base of the tree. You have to remember that the root system of a tree this big isn't just 15, 20, 30 feet away from the base. It's hundreds of feet away. And you need to protect those little tiny roots because that's what takes care of the tree. And a long time ago, there was a massive fire. This was way before this was even thought of as a park. And there's some pictures I'll show you in a little bit at a time that Theodore Roosevelt and John Muir were standing by the base of this tree. And they tell the story about how in 1903, this tree was protected, or these trees were protected as part of the park system. It gives a little better perspective. Look at that. You can see right underneath the root zone of this massive big tree. So this giant, this absolute giant of a tree has got a bit of a lean to it. and it's got an awful lot of weight up there. Someday it's going to fall down, and it's really sad because the Park Service is not protecting the root zone. This whole area should be mulched. And further down, a long time ago, the Park Service thought it was a good idea to cut a hole in a tree so people could drive through it. Now, cars aren't allowed up here anymore, but I mean, this was like in the 20s. There was another giant one at Wawona, and that tree actually fell down. This is the last remaining tunnel tree that they call. But the significance of the damage is outstanding. It's just, but the tree is still alive. For how long? How much of the structural integrity is gone? There's the forest. We stayed up there till just about dusk. And it was beautiful, but it was also very sad. And you can see the evidence of a lot of other trees that blew down in a massive windstorm. It was about a decade ago. I remember reading about this. There we go. Here's the camping trip. And you can stop at any point and read this, but there's some cool pictures. And I'm standing right where Theodore Roosevelt and John Muir were. And if you look at the picture from 1903, you will see that the tree has not changed that much. Hey, thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this little tour of Yosemite and the trees of Yosemite. And if you're not subscribed, please do hit the like button, leave a comment. I love the comments. And become part of this community of like-minded people who enjoy learning about trees. And if you don't like trees, go somewhere else.